podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN NBA Team Podcast. It's great to have you guys back. I am your co-host Andrew Riche. I'm joined by Mr. Adam Murray. How you doing, Adam?
You disappeared.
I did. What it is this. Like, I'll just go ahead and sort of clear the air for everybody. Not really necessarily like that's so important. It's not like we're us as two like amateur podcasters on
we had a big feud, and
yes.
then we just had to take our time apart, and then
yeah, it was like kind of Brett. It wasn't Brett Sean, because Brett Sean went on for like 15 years. It was more like David Lee Roth, and who's the other guy in Van Halen? Sammy Hagar?
It was more like the WCW Nitro twist of the week. Oh, wow, I can't believe he turned on. That's horrible. And then, like, 2 weeks later, they're back, and it's like as if nothing happened.
But to clean this up and just to get the truth out of the way, right around the time of the first round of the playoffs, my dad passed away. And, it's very hard. It's hard, not right now talking about it. I had so many tremendous memories with my dad watching NBA basketball. I remember the first game I ever saw, it was game 1 of the 1991 NBA Finals. That was Michael's first Finals, but that was the one where Magic Johnson, I think he gave the ball to Sam Perkins for a game-winning 3, and Michael missed the jump shot over Byron Scott. But that was the funny part was, Adam, that was the only one they lost. They won the next 4 to win Michael his first title. But that was the first memory I had with him when I was watching basketball. We had so many memories. We watched LSU basketball together. Me and my dad had a tremendous relationship. Sports, we watched wrestling together. We did it all together. And it's he died from cancer. And it's a hard thing. I don't want it to try to sully anything that we talk about, but I felt like, even no matter how many number of listeners we have, I did feel like I at least had the responsibility of at least acknowledging that, yes, we didn't do first round previews, and I do apologize for that, because I did want to be there, but my heart wasn't in it for obvious reasons. But it's a hard thing. A lot of people are in different circles of life, and they go through things like this. Some people have suffered even worse tragedies, and I will tell you that after going through what I went through, my heart goes out to each and every one of y'all. The condolences that have been reached out to me from the people who listen and such, I really do appreciate that. But it's time to enjoy life, just as my dad would have asked me to, and let's just talk about some NBA basketball. Are you ready?
Well, it takes time to process. It takes time to start to, move on. And, I've been there too. Mine was not cancer. Mine was a sudden departure at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's, for you, it's good you have, okay, you're watching basketball. Oh, man, I wish he were here. But you still have the good memories that you take on. And,
yes.
Even especially like growing, it has to happen eventually.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to come. It's going to happen. We all die. I mean, it all happens. It's the loss. It's what you have to deal with after the loss, where you're trying to prepare yourself for it, and you're not truly ready for it. Like you just talked about, for example, that you lost yours in a sudden event, and it's a shock. But then there's that settling in at some point of like, oh, okay, now I have to live life without this man that I've been spending my entire life with. Mine wasn't as sudden. It was a little slower, but the cancer had spread so quickly that he really only had a week to live. And so we've savored that week for as much as we could. Tried to watch as much basketball through the tears as I could. Unfortunately, we didn't have too many good ones. We could probably talk about some of those series as we talk about the teams, because obviously the teams that are moving on to the second round, which is what this show is going to be, it's going to be the conference semifinal preview. They obviously won a series in the first round to get here. Some of them not as notable. Was there one thing in particular? A lot of people, because of recency, would probably talk about the 7-game series that Boston and Milwaukee had, and Indiana and Cleveland had in the Eastern Conference. But we're going to actually go ahead and start with the Western Conference. Was there anything particularly in the West coming from that first round that you've kind of found shocking? I can kind of tip your hat to one on my local end, but I'd rather you just go ahead and satisfy me first.
Well, I know that what that did not sound right. For one, most of the West games were just boring. The series weren't good. Outside of the casual fan, oh my god, I can't believe Oklahoma City lost. But if you watched them all year, they played exactly like that. They just didn't. It was just three players who just take their turns playing. But for the most, Minnesota never showed up. San Antonio never showed up.
Well, San Antonio literally didn't show up. Greg Popovich's wife passed away, so he did not coach the last 3 games of the series, which were games 3, 4, and 5. Ettore Messina coached in his place. They did win game 4 to avoid the sweep of the Warriors, but you knew without Kawhi, with the fact that they were that the Warriors, even without Steph Curry, were just so much more loaded than the Spurs were. And then when Popovich leaves, it's like, oh, okay, now they're really toast. They didn't get swept. They held their pride. They were competitive in most of the games except for maybe one. But still, a 4-1 series win by the Warriors. We'll actually go ahead and just transition there because I don't want to call this the most boring series because we're sort of like the victim of recency bias with this one too, because we just saw this is the only series where in the second round we've actually seen a game, we've actually seen product on the court, and that was the Warriors and the New Orleans Pelicans. Now the Pelicans, I will say this, we could talk about the game 1 blowout by the Golden State Warriors, but this is probably the best I've seen the New Orleans Pelicans play, even with DeMarcus Cousins. Would you agree?
Well, this will, you had always like playoff Rondo. I'm like, no, he exists. He'll show up, and all of a sudden, there he was. And it was also, I'd say, it was more on Portland being the team we thought they were, and we kept saying, everyone's like, no, they're good. They're good. They went on this big streak. They're finally good now. We're like, no, they're not built to do anything.
The funny part about Portland with the matchup with the Pelicans, and this is the only thing I'll talk about with that series, because this was like during all of that stuff I was going through, but it was so weird because you're watching this and you're like, man, this shouldn't be happening, and I'm gonna tell you why. If you looked at the regular season matchups, and I know some of that don't mean a hill of beans when you get to the playoffs because people can adjust, and also injuries and other things can influence the result differently in the playoffs when you're in a best of 7 scenario, but the Blazers pretty much owned the Pelicans in the regular season, and Damian Lillard put up really good numbers on them in every single game. The playoffs was the opposite. Like, Lillard got just ganged up with triple teams, hedging on pick and rolls. They basically forced them to either flip the court with C.J. McCollum on the other side and have to get through like a wall of defenders. And they basically let Al Aminu take threes and letting Jusuf Nurkic go one-on-one with Anthony Davis and force him to get in foul trouble. And it just turned out it just became a rolling avalanche of shit for the Blazers, where once Rondo got sort of unlocked and Holiday really got locked in and Anthony Davis was just having his way inside, the Blazers just had no answers. Plan B wouldn't work. Plan C wouldn't work. And it was almost like the Pelicans didn't even have to get away from Plan A.
Exactly. And basically it just came down to, New Orleans made Portland have Evan Turner beat them, and Evan Turner just couldn't do anything. But
well, he only played in Game 5, I believe, right? Or was it?
He played, but he wasn't effective. And
then they shut down Harkless. Yeah.
Yeah, Harkless and Aminu, and well, he can't really do anything. But moving on now, Golden State. I don't even know what we can say possibly about this other than, well, Golden State should just easily sweep them. You had your good run. You had your playoff run. You made it to the second round.
The only thing I can say about this is that I remember a Saturday night Game 1 in the second round where the Thunder played the Spurs when the Spurs had won 66 games, and the Spurs blew them out, blasted the Thunder, and everyone was like, "Oh well, I guess this is what we thought was going to happen." And then the Thunder won 4 of the next 5 games.
That's what you're going on. That's what you're going to do.
Well, I'm not hanging my hat on it. I mean, I do. If we're going to get the prediction out of the way, just for the sake of speeding it up, I'll say the Warriors should win the series. The rumor is already in there that it's not even a rumor. It's news and notes that Steph Curry is going to play in Game 2. And given the fact that he's already missed an entire round of basketball, and game one of the second round, he's probably ready, would you say?
Oh, he'll be ready, but it might be a little rusty. But I'm not going to say they're all going to be blowouts. They'll all be competitive, but Golden State should easily, 4 games. Okay, I'll give you a game. So 5 games.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is where I was having trouble. Because, I mean, first of all, you have the euphoria of New Orleans winning the series. They hadn't won one since 2008. So, yeah, there's reason for celebration there. Anthony Davis just absolutely rolled. In this series, does Anthony Davis look like he has matchups against guys like Kevon Looney and JaVale McGee and Damian Jones? Yeah, it looks like on paper he might have some success. The problem is what they're going to do is they're going to put Draymond Green on him. And they're basically going to hang their hat that Draymond Green can stay out of foul trouble for the majority of the game in the situations where he either switches on Davis or he basically hangs on to Davis when the Pelicans kind of run slower sets, which isn't as often anymore because if you've noticed, the Pelicans have run at an absolute warp speed for the last 2 months, which has worked to their benefit because they've had one of the best records in the league since February. But for Davis, that's not the issue. Davis is going to get his. He's going to get his. The issue is you got playoff Rondo. Well, first of all, I want you to explain to me what playoff Rondo is, because a lot of people say it because of playoff P with Paul George. That's where it started. But what is playoff Rondo? Like, what is the difference between Rajon Rondo when he's basically just cutting it up in the regular season, and then when he gets set in the postseason? What's the difference?
Playoff Rondo just shows up. Regular Rondo, he'll get his 12 assists if he wants to, and he makes it look easy. But playoff Rondo's like, oh, well, there's 5 steals, there's 8 rebounds. Well, where did all those come from?
And he starts cleaning up the turnovers, and that's when the efficiency goes up.
Yep. But I'm just gonna...
My point there was about Holiday and Rondo, and they're going to be matched up with... It's going to be Curry, and then in his place would be Quinn Cook, and then Klay Thompson, who went off in Game 1, along with... depending on how they want to play it out, Sean Livingston. So how do you feel like that matchup is going to go? Because Drew Holiday and Rajon Rondo looked like they were overmatched against Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum in that department when you look at it on paper, and the script was flipped. But what happens when they play the Warriors?
The issue will be E'Twaun Moore having to take Kevin Durant.
Well, that's already a problem because it's already...
regardless,
like shorter than him.
Regardless of going tit for tat, with playoff Rondo and Thompson, let's say Holiday goes, he goes off again. But you have who's going to guard Durant? Anybody?
I mean, if they had to do that, the guy would be Solomon Hill. And now I know I can already hear the groan on the other side of the microphone, but. The thing is, you don't really have much of a choice. The only other one you'd have is Darius Miller, and that's not his strength. His strength is being able to be a spot-up shooter.
So there's your problem right there.
Offensively, I don't think the Pelicans will have problems matching up with the Warriors. Like, if it turns into a shootout and the Warriors' defense isn't terribly engaged, then I think the Pelicans can hang about 120-plus points on them and get a win in one of these games, maybe even more than one. I have a lot of worry about when the Warriors' defense locks in, if the Pelicans can match that when the Warriors go on a run. I mean, that's a lot of people are like, well, the Pelicans have a lot of problems. They seem to have a lot of problems with the Warriors. It's like everybody has a lot of problems with Golden State. They have an answer for pretty much everything. If you look at their team stats, they're top 10 in almost everything, except for necessarily getting to the free throw line. But
yeah.
the thing is, they do everything really, really well. Is the point I'm trying to make.
So easy 4 or 5. Moving on to the next one,
I can't believe you're doing that to me. You're just gonna sit here and just brush New Orleans right under the rug like that.
That you made it to the second round. Take that. That's more than Minnesota got who were, they were all happy-go-lucky and.
What did you think of Karl Towns in that series? I'm sort of curious by your answer.
Yeah, what did I think of him? Young.
Yeah. I don't think he was terrible. I just don't think he was ready.
That's why young.
Yeah.
The same way, just what happens, it's their first playoff series. You don't know how it's going to take.
Yeah, Rockets Timberwolves was very simple. It was just, they let the Wolves get that one win in Game 3, and then they popped them with that 50-point third quarter in Game 4, and it was over. Like, the Wolves could not recover from it. And that was it.
The Wolves could not recover. It was they just they looked like Thibodeau ran to the edge. They did not look like they were They were tired.
In Game 5, they looked straight depressed. They looked like they were ready. A lot of people talk about that Game 6 when right afterwards Thibodeau was fired by the Bulls when they played the Cavaliers, and people were just shocked at how lethargic they look. And I kept telling people I don't think it was lethargic. I think they just looked downtrodden. It looked like they had exhausted all of their resources and they couldn't match up. Which is okay to admit. They had to struggle just to get to the playoffs. We didn't really get to talk about that, but they had to beat the Nuggets in basically a play-in game.
Yeah, and that's a long way down from being the 4 seed for most of the season.
Yes.
But okay, so that's over. Houston, the feel-good story. Utah, you lose Gordon Hayward. You put together this team. You re-sign Joe Ingles, who
Joe Ingles.
Joe Ingles.
I didn't know he was Spanish. They have enough foreigners on that team. You're just going to make Joe Ingles Spanish. He's Australian already.
Yes, that means he's foreign.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say. He's not Spanish.
Jose Ingles.
You're trying to make it like he's Ricky Rubio's sidekick.
He kind of is Ricky Rubio's sidekick on that team.
Let me ask you this, because it's kind of shocking on both sides. Well, Ingles isn't that shocking because he put together some good performances in the playoffs last year when they eliminated the Clippers. Is Rubio's performance in that Thunder series surprising to you?
No, because we knew he could do it. It's just with Rubio, it's always we expected more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just lofty expectations on him, and even Gobert wasn't the dominating person we thought he would be in the playoffs either.
Yeah, the guy that really they hung their hat on was Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
And to be truthful, a lot of people are like, man, it seems like they're just putting all their apples in that bunch, and it seems, he's just a rookie, and this is dangerous. It's like, dude, it's the playoffs. You got to do what you got to do to win. If Alec Burks is the one making shots in Game 6, put him in there and let him make shots.
That's sort of just how it works.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a feel-good story. And now, tell me how Houston's not going to win in 4 or 5.
Well, let me ask you this: which defense is better? Because they do play differently, and I know the points allowed will say Utah, but if you look at the versatility of Houston and their ability to switch because of guys like PJ Tucker and Trevor Ariza and Chris Paul being a bulldog, like they're able to do more defensively, even though they play at a higher clip. But for Utah, offensively, they're not that bad either. Like the easy generalization is Utah is the slow, scrappy defensive team, and the Rockets are the high-octane, star-driven scoring team. And I don't think that's really the case. I think they're more in the middle than people think.
But it's just a matter of pacing. You have big man Gobert, who, he's going to take everything on the paint. Houston doesn't go into the paint. So that defeats, your big strength you have is now negated.
He and Clint Capella are going to eat each other. I'm actually fascinated with the matchup.
Oh, it's a fascinating matchup, but, how many times is Capella going to touch the ball? It's
PNR. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if they're doing the lobs and all that stuff and they don't set well on the switch, then yeah, Capella's going to feast. He did that in Minnesota against the Timberwolves.
Well, the Timberwolves are just, I'm beginning to think it's the coaching.
You don't think it's Karl Anthony Towns not wanting to play good defense on the switch?
I don't know. It could just be, Jimmy Butler and Wiggins are just the same player, and it's sort of just ruined everything. And
we're not going to get into the minutia of Minnesota, but yeah, Wiggins did not look good in that series. He did not impress me at all.
No, but it just comes down to pace. Like I said, pacing again. Houston just plays too fast. Yeah, Utah could speed up, but not to the level that Houston just runs at all day.
If the Rockets, that's exactly what I was going to say. If they can enable it, then yes, Utah is in enormous trouble. That's a good point. But the thing is, playoff games do slow down, and they're not always at a higher clip. Like the Rockets, they're middle of the pack in pace, but they can definitely pick it up. I mean, you don't score 50 points in a quarter unless you're really ramping up the possessions and going into warp speed. The thing about the Jazz that's a little bit different than it was last year when they had Hayward and Derek Favors was a little bit more of their inside go-to guy, was that they were much slower, and if they played fast, like if a team that was good and played fast like the Warriors were, the moment that they picked it up, you were toast. I think that the Jazz can still hang in there a little bit longer than last year's version can. Like, I'm not trying to like say that the Jazz this version of the Jazz are better than they were last year, but I'm saying they're more equipped to handle a team like the Rockets.
Houston in 5.
That was a very long pause. Neither team is really good at assists, and the 3 points shooting, like, I mean, listen, like, who's better than the Houston Rockets at shooting threes? I mean, seriously.
And that's what's going to come down to. It's going to be Donovan Mitchell's going to think he's going to go toe-to-toe with Harden, and it's not going to go well.
Is Donovan Mitchell a James Harden light? Like, I kind of got that feeling watching him against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was like, this is very much what James Harden did against them in the playoffs last year.
At work, I actually use a comparison that he was Oklahoma City James Harden.
Okay, when he was a sixth man.
Yeah, and he was just sort of the slat, just the...
He wasn't the beard, he was the 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, I see the similarities, yes.
But it's I'm kind of interested to see Mitchell and Harden. The thing that impresses me about Harden is defensively. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, he's more motivated and all this stuff, but he's better defensively this year than I thought he would be. Like, when he's really like in the mode to get a stop, he can get a stop. It also helps to have Chris Paul by your side, because Chris Paul will get in there and get a stop if he needs it.
Yeah. And that sort of changes everything. And
they can invite themselves to have a bad James Harden game and have it not kill you. Like, I think Game 2 against Minnesota, he did not play well, but Chris Paul played really well, and that was all they needed.
Yep.
But the thing is, the truth is, for me, I got Houston winning this probably in 5, because defensively, Houston...
Whoa. I say Houston in 5, I'm at a line, all of a sudden you're like, well, I think Houston will be in.
I didn't say no. I'm just trying to stretch it out here, dude. Like, I'm trying to say, like, listen, there are I'm trying to give myself an out. Like, there are ingredients here where I can see it expanding to 6 or 7 games, but I still see Houston just sinking their teeth in, and it'll be like, I can actually see Houston winning both games at home, and then winning Game 3 in Utah, and then it's a death march to elimination.
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, will Utah fare better than they did last year against the Warriors? Oh, hell yeah! Like, I that one rolled. I mean, let's be serious. That one rolled over. Now, there was a lot of excuses there. Like, Gordon Hayward was sick, I think, with the flu. George Hill, I think, sat out the last 2 or 3 games of that series. Like, and the Warriors were also, like, all-time great. So there were, like, a lot of reasons why that happened. But I do think that Utah can give Houston some problems. I just don't think that they're going to come to fruition unless the Houston Rockets just do a whole lot of things wrong and they match up poorly with Rudy Gobert. That's going to be the big thing.
Okay.
I'm just giving myself an out. I'm saying, listen, it'll probably go 6. It'll probably go 5 games. I can see how it can go 6. But I mean, listen, like, that Oklahoma City, like, did that blown lead against Oklahoma City in Game 5 kind of scare you? Like, you don't think that's going to happen when Houston does one of their big fat runs and then all of a sudden Utah's looking skittish? You don't think that's going to happen?
No.
Why? Because they ain't going to get to that point?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just Warriors and Rockets. Let's get excited for that.
I do want you to bury Russell Westbrook, because I know you like to do it.
I don't. That's for another segment on another episode of another everything. But
43 shots is too many shots. Period. End of story. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
He plays how he plays. He's shown he's not amenable to changing the style of his game, and I don't. It seems like, is he even amenable to the coaching? Because that just. The whole season is just like, you didn't really try.
Yeah, we'll get to them probably when we get to our off-season stuff before we get into draft and free agency. They obviously got a lot. There's a cliff that they're going to have to jump over, or if they don't clear it, they're going to be falling straight down. But we'll get to that when we can. But yeah, the Jazz can be competitive, but I still got the Rockets there. And if that's the case, and that's what we're talking about, we're looking at Rockets Warriors, which is what a lot of people consider was the predicted outcome. The one thing I want to give you is that before we hit the East, do you think the Rockets are better, or do you think the Warriors are better? And do you think the first round gave you any kind of like reconsideration?
No, because the Rockets are trying. The Warriors were just like, okay, you can have the what was it, 65 wins or whatever. You can go push it all you want.
Yeah.
We're just gonna sort of, we'll just put on autopilot.
You don't think it's weird that New Orleans and the Jazz are the ones that are going to be losing in the second round?
What? That is weird that they've actually made the second round?
No, that's the New Orleans and the Jazz because Utah took the team and okay, you totally missed it. Okay, here we go. We're going to the Eastern Conference.
Just gonna no sell that one.
No, I missed your no selling, so I'm very glad to hear it. And now I'll no sell that joke, and then we'll go ahead and go to the Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers because we just watched them win Game 7 of a 7-game, shockingly grueling series against the Indiana Pacers. I know you got a little bit of ammunition about that series.
It's more on. Remember how everyone was like, "Oh, Cleveland's awesome" because all these trades he made, and we were sort of like, "Why?"
I don't think people say when they were awesome. They were saying, "Oh, they're new and they're younger."
They're new. They're younger. They're better than they were. They're rejuvenated. I'm like, no, they took major downgrades everywhere, and I don't want to say Indiana was that good. I think just Cleveland was just that bad.
I mentioned this elsewhere, but the only thing that's a shame for Indiana, and I don't want to get into the whole they got screwed thing with the Game 5 goaltend. That's legit. I can understand that. It's an angering thing. LeBron still hit a game-winning 3 to win the game. LeBron was incredible in pretty much every game in that series, to be honest. But the thing is, the only thing that's a shame for Indiana is that they overachieved basically the entire year. You got to give Nate McMillan and Victor Oladipo and his teammates a whole lot of credit for being able to get them to where they were. The shame of it is that Game 7 will, when I watched it, be defined by the mistakes that Indiana made and the opportunities that they missed. I can't think of, look at how hard they worked. All I could think of is, man, they had a chance here, they had a chance there. They really could have finished off the Cavs, and they didn't do it.
Well, that was just LeBron willing the team. He played what, 43 minutes, 44 minutes?
He actually there was a very critical part where in the beginning of the fourth they rested him purposely. He may have had a cramp or something because he went to the locker room and came right back. But what happened was Indiana played the Cavs without LeBron for about a minute or two, and they never did anything. Actually, the Cavs extended the lead, and then LeBron came back with a little bit of win back, and that was like, okay, now you're in a lot of trouble now. Because now they went back and forth, I believe, with the lead in that early part of the fourth quarter. But the problem was you basically enabled LeBron to feel confident about going into that fourth quarter, being able to take the game. And guess what LeBron James is going to do every time you put him in that position? He's going to take the game from you. All
right, so now we have the Toronto matchup.
And do you think LeBron can take those games away from Toronto? Is the
Toronto bully? It's one of those, like, Cleveland is just the bully to Toronto, and Toronto believes that, and they have that, that second-class citizen, like, oh, we can't beat Cleveland. Cleveland always has our number.
Can I give you a good comp? Can I give you a decent comp? I know it's not exact because the Celtics in 2010 were a bit more of an firmer ground. They had played together for a lot longer. Does this feel like Cavs Celtics in 2010, where the Raptors are the Cavs and the Cavs are the Celtics?
No, it's. I don't think it's like that, but it's just Toronto needs to get out of their own heads. And it was always, can Toronto win a series? Then can Toronto do this? And they always have that constant monkey on their back.
They did impress me in the Wizards series. Even in the games that they lost, I was fairly impressed. Now Game 3 they got blown out, but Game 4, they lost. But they really they scared the Wizards straight in that first half. They were like they had to push the Wizards to play their best basketball to win that Game 4. And then in Games 5 and 6, they pretty much finished them off. Game 6, the big story that came out of there was their bench. Their bench scored like about 35 or 36 points, got a bunch of rebounds. Siakam played well, or Siakam, however, Siakam. What is it?
Siakam.
Okay, we'll just go with Siakam, which is I think that's also a good allergy medicine over the counter that you can buy, or is that whatever. DeLon Wright shockingly played well. They got Fred VanVleet back for that Game 6 after he had like some kind of shoulder injury. We'll see how effective he is against the Cavs. Do you think that there will be deep ramifications there? Because, it seemed like guard play gave the Cavs a lot of trouble in that Indiana series. It would be good to have Lowry, VanVleet, and DeLon Wright. Do you think they'll be able to do that?
This is a tough matchup because on paper it looks like Toronto probably should win. Just Cleveland doesn't really have it. It's just LeBron willing. Kevin Love has been there. Tristan Thompson has been there. But it's been LeBron.
I think one of the reasons I mentioned that about the backup guards is because Lowry has had a history of just going into shutdown mode against the Cavaliers.
Disappearing, yeah.
Yeah, remember what did he call it? Decompression? Where he said that he had to leave one of the games in 2016 because he had to decompress. Because, he literally could not handle the failure. That's basically what it was. He was sucking so badly, he had to leave the game and kind of look at himself in the mirror and say, I got to do something different. And then he got injured in the series of 2017, and without them, they had no chance. DeRozan, here's the problems there. When you look at the stats, yeah, Toronto should match up really, really well with Cleveland. They're a better offensive team for the most part. Defensively, they're better. 3-point shooting, it's almost a push because Cleveland can really they can stock up some threes pretty quickly on you. But the thing is, LeBron is better than DeRozan. He'll match up with DeRozan if it gets to crunch time, LeBron's going to guard DeRozan. And that's gonna stymie their offense because they go into so much one-on-one basketball. You don't know what you're gonna get out of Lowry. Now Lowry had to deal with Kyrie Irving, one of the 5 best guards on planet Earth. Now you're dealing with George Hill and Kyle Korver, so maybe that'll be a bit of a relief for him. And he's got backup behind him in case he sucks.
Yeah, but again, it's all on paper. But they're just gonna start melting, and then. And then it's just going to be, DeRozan takes a 26-foot off balance.
They do a lot of floppy one-on-one shit with DeRozan that I just can't stand. That's the one thing about their offense that just boggles my mind. They do run some decent stuff with CJ Miles and even OG Anunoby when he comes out to start. He guarded LeBron in their regular season matchups. The problem was in the last 2 regular season games in Cleveland, LeBron gave Toronto the business. He basically ran point forward, and the Raptors couldn't stop him. He basically did whatever he wanted. We also going to have Valanciunas here. He played well in the Washington series. They needed him pretty badly. And then there's Ibaka. The problem I have is Kevin Love is a bad matchup for Valanciunas because he's just not going to step out there to guard him. It would have to be Ibaka. And then after that, you got Tristan Thompson. We didn't see Thompson as much early in the Indiana series, but I do think we're going to see a lot of him in this series.
Yeah. And, he had to adjust his game a little bit this year. He had to sort of fit, he fit well into Toronto last year, but it was sort of one of those you have to re-sign him. You really can't lose him because your team's gutted.
Well, the thing I like about Ibaka, though, is that, and you saw this in the Washington series, he's got that edge. He is not afraid to get dirty. He's not afraid to get in a fight. And he's a good 3-point shooter, too. That's the other thing I can give Ibaka. He's a very good 3-point shooter.
Yeah, and he'll stretch, and that's the thing with him and Love. They'll just be sitting at the 3-point line. Neither one of them will want to get down low.
Yeah, you watch that Indiana series and you see Domantas Sabonis was he was effective in that series. So when you're looking at a comp for Toronto, I guess it would be Ibaka. But because Jakob Poeltl is not, to me, he's not similar at all to the way that Sabonis plays.
No.
So, but, I'm not saying Poeltl's a bad player. I'm saying this might be a bad matchup for him if Cleveland tries to open up the shooting. Because in the playoffs the last 2 seasons, that's what they did. They would basically try to solve their defensive issues with really, really good 3-point shooting, where LeBron would try to cover as much ground as he can handling the ball and then just find open shooters. And I do feel like they're going to go back to that in this series. The question is, can Toronto handle it?
And that's all in their heads. It's one of those, PTSD is a crazy thing, and they seem to always have it with Cleveland. They just disappear and they wilt away, and hopefully, I want to say hopefully this year they can get over that hump.
What's different about Toronto versus the last two seasons? In this particular matchup with Cleveland, I know the team for Cleveland's different, but what's different about Toronto?
DeRozan has taken more of a lead role this year.
Okay. Their bench is a little better?
They have depth, which, they've never really had.
They had teases with guys like Norman Powell and people like that, but not to
They had Powell, who was serviceable, and you had Terrence Ross, but now they just have you're a bench player, this is your role, be good at it, and they are.
They got OG Anunoby in the Keith Bogans role, guys like that.
Yeah. And it's just, this, if they can't do it this year, it's just, then I don't know.
Listen, like LeBron might leave. If LeBron leaves, then the East is why.
Not with the next matchup.
That's what I was about to say. We might be looking at the future here. I can kind of give away that we saved the best for last, and so we're just going to go ahead and move on that. And this is the last matchup, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers, who are the 3 seed. They're going to be going to Boston to start in this series where they play the Boston Celtics, who had to go 7 games to beat a scrappy but still frustrating to watch Milwaukee Bucks team. Would you agree?
Well, imagine if Milwaukee had a good coach.
You know who they remind me of? They remind me of the Warriors when Mark Jackson coached them. That's who they remind me of.
It's just, okay, let's give the ball to Giannis and everybody else just sort of run around in a circle. Like, you're with, Boston's without their 2 best players and just injuries abound. They should not have even been in the series.
Yeah.
It should have been like a quick sweep for Milwaukee, but Milwaukee just found a way to, it's a lot easier, hitting like 61% of their threes at home, and all of a sudden, can you do that on the road? Oh, nope, you just disappear on the road. And
well, also the absence of Kyrie Irving forcing them to rely on Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier, very, very young players. So of course, when they go they'll play well at home where they feel secure. Of course, they're going to be going on the road and kind of shit the bed here and there. That's normal. The thing that surprised me was. Eric Bledsoe got into the series later on. He had a couple of better performances, but how poorly he played against Rozier to start the series is sort of what did him in. Well, because they had opportunities in those first 2 games to take one, and they didn't do it, and the home team won every game.
What Eric Bledsoe was brought in to take Milwaukee to the next level, and he just didn't do it, period. And
I will say this, he's better than Jason Terry. He's better than what they had before. The problem was you got clowned by a third-year player, Yeah,
and, I'll just say this about Boston. Brown and Tatum are fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, Embiid and Simmons are fun to watch. And I like how, trust the process. It's just Embiid because we can't speak of Okafor and Noel.
It sounds repetitive talking about some of these teams because we talk about them on the show all the time. But I will say this because when you get into the playoffs, you get to watch these teams over and over again. I will say this about Jason Tatum. He's a much better passer than I thought he was. He is able to initiate a lot. Jaylen Brown proved in a couple of games against Milwaukee that he can light it up fast. Brad Stevens, just very, very clever coach. I thought that comeback in Game 4, that was all Stevens. I thought that he was just able to put him in a position where, okay, Jaylen Brown, we're going to put you in a good spot to try to take a couple of shots. Al Horford probably had one of his best series ever as a player, and that goes back to his Atlanta days. And then Marcus Smart, I know a lot of people were sort of poo-pooing how his shooting has been poor and that he's getting a little too much credit for the intangibles that he brought, but still, he brings a lot of energy and a lot of things that can't be quantified. So
he brings in intangibles. Like, damn it, he can't shoot, but those intangibles keep.
There's another block. There's another steal. There's another flop. And a lot of people are frustrated by the flops by Marcus Smart. And guess what? That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to be frustrated. It's like Lance Stevenson against LeBron. Like, that's what he wants. He wants to troll you.
It's just a smaller Rasheed Wallace who did the exact same thing.
They're going to be up against the 76ers. They made, I don't want to say quick work of the Miami Heat, but those two games in Miami where Philly sort of distanced themselves in the fourth quarter really, really impressed me. Like, I did not see that coming. I thought it was going to be a little bit more resistance. I thought Miami was going to be able to give them a little bit more of that defense down the stretch to try to keep the games close. And Philly was just, I'm just saying it straight, Philly was just too talented for them.
I don't know. Yes, they were, obviously, but Miami beat themselves. You know, Spoelstra, let's take out, what was our main success? Well, we had Whiteside. Well, let's go play small ball. Okay. And then you have, Kelly Olynyk and Tyler Johnson, just like all these,
Yeah, a lot of people question the reliance on Kelly Olynyk versus Whiteside, but a lot of people say, well, Whiteside put himself in that hole because he was playing so poorly against Embiid. But, that's neither here nor there, because the coach is the one that puts the players on the court. The thing is, though, Josh Richardson, they felt like they wanted to go small because Josh Richardson had some success in that series. Olynyk could shoot a little bit more, and they were a good three-point shooting team, Miami was, but the 76ers are one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. So, yeah, you're already putting yourself in a hole automatically by doing that.
Yeah, that's what you just pass it to J.J. Redick. Oh, there's another three. And
didn't he have like a 27-point game in the elimination game, JJ?
Yeah, and then, just Simmons. Oh, he can't shoot. Well, if you pass like that, you don't need to. And, Embiid is who he is, so it wasn't too surprising. So all I can say about this matchup is we've seen them when they play each other. It's just going to be a fun matchup.
Yeah, and it was evenly matched. I talked about how Utah and Houston, that generalizing it would not be the right thing to do because they were a little closer to the mean than a lot of people think. This one, I'd say it is easy to generalize. It's offense versus defense.
Yep, so who do you... Oh, we didn't even pick the Toronto Cavs one. Who did you pick for that one?
I'll have the Cavs in 6.
Cavs in 6 sounds good for me as well.
I mean, I gotta, when it comes to LeBron, I know it's an easy out. I just got to see it to believe it. I got to see him go. The thing with LeBron, and we'll get right back to the series we're talking about, is this. It's fun to watch him in this situation because it's like watching him when he just first started in the playoffs. It's almost like he's reverting. Like, not as a player, just the position that he's in. Like, he's in a position where he was just starting in the playoffs and he was carrying his team to playoff victories and trying to do everything humanly possible. But the difference here, he's got all that resume behind him now. He's got all the winning moments. He's got the championships. He's played in 2 finals, game 7s. Like, he's got it all in the bag. And so if he wants to pull that out on the Raptors if the game is close and aim and shoot, he'll do it. But now let's get back to the Celtics and the Sixers.
I don't know what there's much to say about it because
there's quite a few. I think Horford Embiid is really interesting because they both sort of like to kind of come out a little bit, but Embiid in rim protection was very, very good in that Miami series. Horford he takes pride in the fact that he's able to get around the angles and make plays that way. Rozier, he's a guy that, you just got to watch out for him if he gets into the paint and he's able to sort of penetrate and get layups, and Embiid's going to try to eliminate those. I'm curious to see if Stevens tries to attack Embiid and get him in foul trouble early.
That seems like the most logical sense.
And then there's Ben Simmons, and who do you match him up with? Rozier's a little too small. I think Jason Tatum would be the perfect matchup. But does that take away his offense? Because that means Simmons is going to be guarding him, and Simmons has been an effective defender.
Yeah, but then, okay, you have Jaylen Brown, who will be up against...
Robert Covington?
Covington, maybe, and...
and then there's Saric, who, if you want Saric and Morris, I think is going to be I think we're going to at least see one fight there. Saric is a little scrappy, man. Like, you don't want to get in his face too much, And then you got a lot of interesting ones behind that, like Markelle Fultz is sort of sitting there, but they've always, Brett Brown's got that weapon in his back pocket. TJ McConnell gave him some minutes, and I'm pretty sure that'll be him and Shane Larkin. That'll be your break time. And then there's Redick. Redick's your marksman, and we'll see how that kind of works out. It's a fascinating matchup. the Celtics, I just am so impressed by what they can get out of their guys. I'm watching Game 7
overachieving left and right.
I'm watching Game 7 against the Bucks, which they won comfortably. Semi Ojeleye is out there in crunch time, and I'm not trying to say like Ojeleye is a bad player. He's built like a horse, but like he's not ready for this stuff, and he's sitting there making plays. You know,
it's always something shocking, and it's like, you're like, why the hell did they sign Shane Larkin? Shane Larkin's terrible. Then you're like, you know what? Shane Larkin isn't that bad.
The only thing I say is that if Simmons gets engaged where he's able to sort of penetrate and move and get into that fast pace, and you're going to wind up in the switch with guys like Greg Monroe having to guard him, you're in trouble. Like that's when the Sixers will be able to feast. I see this one going 7. I'll just go for it. And because it's home, I'll give it to Boston because I just don't think Philly's going to be ready for that kind of environment in a 7th game. I don't want to say the Miami series came too easy for them because they earned that series win, but it was almost Thunder-like, where it was like they were just too good for Miami.
All right, I would say probably Philly in 6 just because, just a war of attrition on the Celtics, and, I shouldn't be seeing the players I see in their crunch time minutes because of, again.
Do you think the Sixers have a weapon too many?
Not as a weapon too many. It's just, with Kyrie going out for the year, that's sort of, Marcus Smart coming back helps them, but Marcus Smart's he's gonna shoot 10 shots and he's gonna make 2.
I'm pretty much betting Smart is gonna be on Simmons for a good portion of the games. The problem is because of his foul trouble, he likes to roam. So he's not going to be stuck to him like glue unless Stevens tells him to. But, I can see some situations where Smart gets under their skin.
All right, so we agreed on 3 and we differ on the Celtics-Sixers.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, Celtics-Sixers, I think, is the one. Not only that, there's the tradition there. You got Bird versus Irving. Remember, they also played in 2012 when I think it was Andre Iguodala and Drew Holiday and help me out here. Who was the other guys that were on the team? Like Elton Brand and Thaddeus Young, huh?
Yep.
We just saw get eliminated with the Pacers. That was that team versus like that last throws Boston team when they had Pierce and Rondo and Garnett and Ray Allen. So like that, we've seen that version of the Celtics and the Sixers in recently, but it always sort of harkens back the ghosts of playoff lore when they play each other because they played each other so many times in the past.
Yep.
But do you think that will match up with the intensity?
It'll just be fun to watch. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, but what makes the Celtics fun to watch in general? Because when you look at their stats, like they're a slow team, they like to play defense offensively, not that great. Like, what is it about them that appeals to people?
Tatum and Brown. Watching those two, everybody, you don't hear, it's like, Tim Brown and like Simmons and Embiid. You watch them, it's like, you know what? This is the future of the NBA. We like these kids. Like we said with Donovan Mitchell as well. It's this year's playoff seems to be like a nice little coming out party for the next generation.
Simmons was shockingly composed in the Miami series. Like, he never got rattled in that game. It almost surprised me because when he was at LSU, that's not what I saw. I saw a guy that looked like he wasn't ready.
LSU, he looked like a guy who was like, why am I still here?
Yes, and Embiid, I mean, the truth is with Embiid, because of his personality, he's always ready for the moment. Like, he's a guy that's like, he thinks he should win a championship. He truly, truly believes that, and it's okay to believe that when you're that good of a player. With Brown and Tatum, like you said, they sort of just go about their business, but the talent level is so high. You do worry about the Jabari Brown injury or Jaylen Brown injury. But I think he'll be ready to go unless there's some scuttlebutt that he won't.
No, he should. Again, just attrition. I think we'll do the Celtics in at the end, even if he comes back just one more injury, the Celtics just dooms him.
So you're just going to blame injuries for the loss to the Sixers that they're eventually going to have?
It's nothing wrong with that.
So, I mean, look,
Sixers are hot.
Well, you're a Celtics fan, and you're sitting there picking the Sixers. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Well,
I think you're just doing it as a
you're
reverse
Pelicans
chase.
fan, and you picked the Warriors.
Well, I'm a realist. I mean, the Warriors are better.
I'm a realist too. Next year is the Celtics.
If I go out there and say, "Oh yeah, the Pelicans are definitely going to beat the Warriors," I look stupid.
I'm a realist too. Next year, Celtics will be in the finals. They're building for next year.
Yeah, but I will say this for the Celtics. Like, they have a legitimate shot here. Like, the Sixers are probably more talented, but I can definitely see, like, a scenario out of the millions of scenarios in this universe where the Celtics eliminate the Sixers. Like, it's a real possibility.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. With the Pelicans eliminating the Warriors, you'd have to tell me that Kevin Durant went down for the season.
Okay, fine. We both agree it'll be 6 or 7 games for both of the East Coast.
And this is how the Celtics are built, man. This is like, with the Cavs, it's kind of weird because that's not how they're built. Like, LeBron usually makes it look easy. He does have some 7-gamers every now and then, but for him to have one in the first round and have to be, like, in lockdown mode that early, it's almost a bad thing for Toronto because now LeBron is, like, in the mode already. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but all you can do is just... I don't... Toronto just hopefully just gets out of their heads.
Yeah. Are you kind of secretly rooting for Toronto?
Oh, I'm openly rooting for Toronto.
Openly.
Not secretly. I want Toronto to beat Cleveland.
Such a LeBron hater. This goes all the way back to those Celtics days. When LeBron, when they had the big three and they
Toronto's just a better team overall. It's again, we are back to the Cleveland LeBrons again.
Yeah.
LeBron needs to hit 45 for them to win, and that's not a good thing.
I did hear a takeaway from Jeff Van Gundy. You might call it somewhat hot, that he thought Indiana was still better as the Cavs were about to finish off winning the game. I can't believe that. Like, I just think that the Cavaliers won that series because they were better. Some people will point to Game 5, but I did think the Cavs were better. I can definitely believe, if you sat me down in a room and talked to me long enough, that the Raptors are better than the Cavaliers. I can believe that. The thing is, LeBron's the best player on the court still.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to that guard play. Like, the guard play for the Cavs is not there all the way. They do kind of pull out some good ones every now and then, but the problem is Lowry, is he ready, and can the backups pick up Lowry if he plays like shit? Like, that's the big part with the Pelicans. It's just, did Drew Holiday and Rondo overachieve in the first round, and will they be exposed in the second when Curry comes back? That's the that's the other situation. And then with the Rockets and the Jazz, I just think we're in for decent matchups, but I do think the Rockets are a better team, and if you just go by that default, then the Rockets should win the series.
All right.
A lot of interesting stuff. I think the East is more interesting than the West, but I'm much more looking forward to the Western Conference
The next
finals.
round will be flipped.
Yes, like I am looking at which way does it go this year with ESPN and TNT? TNT last year had the East, so TNT is going to have the West this year. So ESPN is going to wind up with the East. Like say Philly. Well, listen, if Philly gets if the Boston Celtics get to the conference finals, people will be somewhat interested because this is the scrappy Celtics. They were a 2 seed anyway, even though they had Irving for most of the season. If the Sixers get to the conference finals and say it's LeBron and the Cavs, people are going to be really interested in that because they're going to want to see if this team that was the process, that was terrible, and now they got to go through LeBron to try to get to the finals, and are they ready, and are they hungry enough? Like, you got all those storylines there. The Raptors getting that far and getting over Moby Dick, like, that would be pretty cool, but we'll see if it happens.
Well, you know what? Good to have you back.
I'm glad to be back too. On behalf of Adam Murray, the James Harden, we'll see you guys really soon. I promise this time.